Hey, everybody, welcome to an audio edition of Movies Are Dead. All right, me and Boris are back here. Um, Unfortunately, we had to do an audio because there seems to be how would you say, Boris? What's going on exactly?
Well, I invited you over and you didn't want to come over because you were settled in, according to you. So I don't know. It's your deal. I don't know, man. My door's always open to anyone who wants to come over and hang out, watch movies. Anyone out there,
Okay.
come on
All
by.
right.
We'll watch a
Come on.
vegetarian movie. Watch some Ozu, some Kurosawa, some Jafar Panahi.
Nice. Wow. No, Boris. Okay, I'll let that one slide. All
Okay.
right, Boris. No, pretty much what happened was someone is sick at Boris's home, and we're taking precautions, COVID times, all that jazz.
Okay.
So that is why we have an audio edition of Movies Are Dead. Nevertheless, you're still going to get the same content here. Boris, tell us about our movie today. What are we reviewing?
We're reviewing Steven Soderbergh's Behind the Candelabra.
Yeah, man.
Came out
Behind the
what year?
Candelabra.
2012? Was that the year?
It came out in 2013, I believe, spring
Oh,
of
yeah.
2013. Yeah, on HBO. It was like an exclusive movie. I remember being a little when it came out. I remember feeling like this movie should have been, on a wide release type of thing. It feels like this movie could have been a real box office hit, and I think an Oscar
Did you?
contender.
Did you?
Well, yeah, I mean, if a big studio got behind it and it wasn't like an HBO movie, and to remember, like in 2013, streaming just wasn't what it is. I mean, it was kind of taking off at the time. You had like House of Cards. What else? Like Marco Polo for Netflix had bombed 2 years prior. Um, I mean, Mad Men was still on TV. AMC was still putting out, Walking Dead. I know they still are. It
The thing
just,
is, Soderbergh said that he shopped this movie around. Matt Damon, Michael D. All the studios said at that budget level, which was, if I recall, $23 million. It's not that much. All the studios said it was too gay. Too gay
it
for a
was,
wide release.
it was too gay for a wide release.
Straight from the horse's Soderbergh. That's what he said. It's too gay. So
It
the
was
only
too.
the only place to make it was at HBO, and that's where they made it. That's where it came out.
I mean, dude, it's kind of hard to believe that it's too gay for a wide. I mean, I guess nowadays, if it were to be made, it would kind of be like a real big pop culture icon type of thing. But it felt like this movie could have been wider released and studio backed in 2013, in my opinion.
I think if they had made it 5 years before, it could have been. But at that point, with streaming,
Yeah.
said
Hmm.
all the Marvel movies were coming out that
Yeah.
that year. What came out? Iron Man 3 or something, Captain America, whatever. With a very different landscape than even
Yeah.
5 years previous. So yeah, they wound up HBO, which traditionally takes on more of, could say, controversial. Like back in the '70s, you would see this kind of movie in the movie theaters, but not now, not anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. They would take chances. I think HBO always takes chances. I mean, it's just, oh man, this movie, man, I think it's a real special Soderbergh movie. He
Mhm.
has like, these like off movies, like little like movies that you never expect him to make, but he makes, and they turn out to be like amazing movies. Like, I think we can do a whole series on the guy, which we probably should. We probably should individually review his movies one by one. If you kind of think of like King of the Hill, with the Underneath and the Limey, those are, and then also Sex Lies and Videotape. That's kind of like a quadrilogy of some sort.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I've always seen him as reminds me of that kind of director back in the '30s and '40s, like Howard Hawks, William Wyler,
Yeah,
Fred Zinnemann. I would just go from different genres. They make a western, maybe a little noir, maybe a little screwball comedy, and they would work fast, like have a movie out every year, every 2 years. They wouldn't take long breaks
Yeah.
like Kubrick or Terrence Malick. They would always be working. And that's what Soderbergh reminds me of. And also because he's a very classical director in terms of the way he edits and stages scenes and directs. Especially, this is what I noticed about this movie more than last time is that it's just very classically made. Like all the scenes are shot maybe at 3, 4 different angles. Some scenes are even like shot in like one angle of the camera just moving according to where the characters are in the space. And that's really just what makes them special, especially now where it's directors mostly just seem to shoot a bunch of coverage and then sort of put it all together in editing. But he just always knows exactly what he needs and he gets it. No more nor less.
Yeah,
No fat.
that's true. Yeah, there is no fat, and like he DPs the movies too, right?
Yeah, he usually DPs them and or edits them. But yeah, back to your point about him working in thematically related trilogies or quadrilogies. What do you think this is part of? Because before this movie, what did he make? He made Che. He made Girlfriend Experience. He made Contagion.
All right, so yeah, I mean, Contagion, Haywire. That's right,
Haywire.
Haywire.
Yeah.
Haywire, Magic Mike, and then it was Behind the Candelabra. I mean, Haywire, I know you're not the biggest fan of.
Like it.
I liked Haywire
Yeah.
because it's kind of like one of those movies where it's like Jason Statham. It's like a Jason Statham action movie, but with a female lead actress.
Yeah.
And then Magic Mike, which I totally forgot he did. You know, it's a hell of a movie. So I mean, like it's in a real peculiar place. I mean, like it's in between Contagion and Side Effects.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like that was supposed to be his like au revoir movie. Remember, he's like, I'm retiring. You
Yeah.
know, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then the next year he did like a TV show and he shot
so
every single episode. The Nick, remember?
yeah,
He never really retired. He just kept moving to a different sort of format, just TV. And then 3 years later, he like made like Logan Lucky. So it wasn't really that much of retirement though. He just did different things.
yeah, I know. And then I think he was also like second unit director on the Hunger Games or something.
Yeah, that's what I saw on Wikipedia, which is like it's funny.
I remember like somebody was talking about it in film school, and I was like, oh, okay. Like,
He
at the
did
time,
that. I think he did that for Magic Mike extra large. Was that the
yeah,
what it was called?
yeah,
XXL.
yeah. So I mean, he's always working. I mean, like, but you know, my favorite, I guess if you could say like, you know, Soderbergh trilogy would probably be like The Girlfriend Experience, Bubble, and like Full Frontal.
Yeah.
Those are just very like small, strange films. And then also thrown in there is Che Part 1 and 2, which we have to review. You know, we gotta do that one because that's just
Yeah.
it's just one of those movies where like, dude, even when Sean Penn won his I remember like this like vividly for some reason, but like when Sean Penn won his Best Actor award for Milk,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing he said when he got on stage was, I don't know why Soderbergh and I think Del Toro are not wearing crowns on their heads for Che, but it's such a great movie. Maybe it's the politics. It was such a weird like fuck you to like the Academy. I don't know. It was so strange. You got to look it up.
Well, yeah, I mean that Che. I mean, I think most of Soderbergh's movies aren't very, they're not the kind of movie that get nominated for a lot of Oscars. Like even Traffic, which he won Best Picture and Best Director for, it's not a very traditional doesn't have a happy ending for sure. But also, it's not very doesn't coddle you. I don't think it's not very doesn't talk down to you in the way that you could say that even Aaron Brockovich does, which is more of a movie that is more of like a fist pump. Yes, we can all do it if we band together kind of movie. His movies usually tend to be a bit more ambiguous and you could say cold, maybe, and intellectual. And those usually don't get Oscar nominations.
I think like Traffic and Aaron Brockovich, those two are like brother and sister in some strange way. All right, let's get into the Boris's favorite Soderbergh movie here, Behind the Candelabra. It's my favorite. It's one of my favorite Soderbergh movies. You know, I mean, just to start it off, if anybody hasn't watched it, it's pretty much how would you describe it? A biography of the last final years of Liberace before the death.
Well, yeah, it's a story.
Um,
It's a love story of two
yes.
who love each other. Scott, played by Matt Damon, who's just at the beginning of the story. He's the 18-year-old animal wrangler for the movies, and through a friend, he meets Liberace. And Liberace at this point is what? How old is he? 50s, 60s?
I think so. He's pretty old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they go to one of his shows in Vegas, and it's obviously a big standout moment in the movie where Liberace is obviously very talented playing the piano. He's one of those virtuosos. And in that moment where Scott is watching the show, he sort of becomes irresistibly attracted to him because of his talent and extravagance. And as we later find out, Liberace has no qualms about spending money. And this is almost the complete opposite and showing off about who he is for the most part. And this is the complete opposite for Scott, who feels he has to hide who he is and comes from a very humble background.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it, especially like him recognizing Liberace's talent in
Mhm.
that theater scene when they're watching him and the way Liberace's playing the piano and the little small talk he gives about playing in a saloon in like Milwaukee,
Mhm.
his interaction with the crowd. And yeah, it's almost like a fairy tale, this movie. It's
Definitely.
like a bizarro fairy tale. And I like the way Soderbergh sets up Scott's character.
Mhm.
He's like, yeah, as you said, an animal wrangler. He's almost very like, is he's supposed to be 18? That's so crazy. I can't
At
believe that
at
Damon.
the beginning of the story, he's 18. And yeah, Matt Damon does not look 18. But
No, no, it's like mid-20s maybe, but yeah, I agree. It's like very hard to like process, I think, because the love story between them is like has all these like layers. It's like it's almost like brotherly,
mhm,
then it's like fatherly, and then it's almost like he's his lover. It's so weird. It's
yeah,
like
it's a combination of all those things.
yeah, and Liberace's like, I want to be everything to you, Scott, you
Yeah.
know, and it's so as I've said, it's like a fairy tale, but it's also like a marriage story without the marriage, you know, and it's very like heartbreaking to see Stott, especially his background, you know, like
Mm,
his mom was in and out of places, I guess, for drugs and mental health issues. And, you know, he's one of several half siblings and he's living on a ranch in the beginning with his like family, adopted family. And I like the way Soderbergh lights the ranch and everything, like the
very,
warm, like
yeah,
auburn
golden
colors.
lights, yellow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can see Scott sees a lot of himself in the way Liberace started out, which he didn't have money, he didn't come from money. He didn't have a dad, right? His dad wasn't around either.
His dad wasn't around now.
And so Liberace, Lee, as they usually call him in the story, he turned himself, he transformed into who he wanted to be. And Scott doesn't have that really. He doesn't have that will or talent maybe to just surpass who he was and turn into someone else.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I mean, his goal is to become like a veterinarian, but even he's not like that thrilled with that career choice. Even though he loves animals, it feels like he's just like, I that's what I kind of want to do. I mean, you
Well, yeah,
know,
maybe if he hadn't met Lee, he would have been a veterinarian and had lived a happy life. But when you're that young and you meet someone who's like showering you with gifts and money and the house and
yeah,
cars,
and
that
love.
will yeah, love and acceptance that you've never had before. That's inevitably going to change you and who you
Yeah.
are and who you're going to turn into.
No, I just like the way the story is set up. You know, I like the way Soderbergh starts the story with they're in a gay bar, you
Yeah,
know, it's just focuses on the back of Matt Damon and a gentle push in and the music's playing. I think it's fuck, I forgot that song. So it's like an
Donna
infamous.
Summer, it's
There you go. Yeah,
beloved, right?
I think so. Yeah, it's just a beautiful setup,
Yeah.
and, and the way they open up by them going to Vegas.
Yeah.
for the weekend, and Matt Damon Scott is like telling his adopted family, "I'm just gonna go for the weekend or the day or something," and they don't even know he's gay. They're so they probably have a feeling, but they just
Yeah.
don't. They're
They're,
almost in denial.
yeah, exactly. They're in
Even
denial.
though, yeah, even though he's so like feminine and soft and like
Yeah.
it's so. I feel so sorry for Scott. I feel like it's almost like he's this like vulnerable like puppy of some sort. I don't know how to explain.
Definitely. I mean, Scott as a character, especially at the beginning of his relationship with Lee, he like I don't know if you remember a couple of scenes where they get walked in on by the maid or the
Yeah.
butler. I forgot his name.
Yeah, that guy. Let me check here.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, whenever they walk in, Scott's first impulse is to cover up and hide and be ashamed
yeah,
of what he's done or doing. And Lee, yeah, Lee just doesn't. He knows that this is his place where he can truly be himself. Because also, it's made clear several times in the movie that his public image is that Liberace is a completely straight man.
yeah, and he's engaged to a figure skater
Yeah,
that he has no interest at
yeah,
all.
it's all manufactured by his manager, played by
Yeah, and he even says to Scott, "Oh, it's those thighs, please."
yeah,
No, he's not even remotely interested in women. He looks upon big thighs, and I'm just like, oh man, like this guy's putting everybody on. And people believe him. Like at
yeah,
his show, they're like, oh, he must have a lover. Like so crazy.
yeah. Like it says, people believe what they want to believe, or some variation of that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, he knows that he has to hide this part of himself to be accepted by the mainstream, and that if he revealed that he was gay, that yeah, he wouldn't have a show in Vegas anymore.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been on TV either. Remember that TV clip?
Yeah, or at the Oscars or whatever,
Yeah, the Oscars.
or on a talk
And
show. Yeah, you wouldn't have any of that.
this movie's like all about facades, going back to that like fairy tale theme where it's just like nothing is real in my opinion. Like nothing, it's all sort of like a dream for Scott,
Hmm.
especially the people he meets. Like the way Soderbergh like creates actors and the characters in this movie is very strange. It's almost like a theater performance, like vaudeville. I don't know how to explain. Like, especially with like, I don't know, like all these little side characters for me is what make the movie like Tom Papa as the door guy for Liberace in the beginning, Dan Aykroyd as Mr. Heller, the manager,
Rob Lowe.
uh, Rob Lowe will get you on the California diet. Well, come on, dude. That's like Rob Lowe's best work in my opinion. Aside from being Soda Pop and Outsiders, it's just like it's so bizarre how like Rob Lowe creates that character. I don't know. It's such like his face and like his eyes are never closed.
It's like a shiny face. It looks like like covered in Vaseline or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's like giving Matt Damon speed pills, when Matt Damon gets a surgery for his face to look like
Oh
Liberace and
yeah,
like
it's a big, I guess, disturbing plot point is that Liberace wants Scott to look as much like a young version of himself as possible.
yeah.
And that
It,
has to do with getting a nose job, fixing his cheekbones, his chin.
yeah, a dimple. Remember, that's the only input Matt Damon has. He's like, I want a dimple.
Uh huh.
And then like Rob Lowe's like, he's like, what does he say? He's like, he goes, Lee doesn't have a dimple. He's like, he doesn't have one. And he's like, but I want it for me. It's my face. And but all these little characters that are on the side, and like Paul Reiser at the end of the movie as the lawyer,
Yeah.
he just shows up, and then like you also have Boyd Holbrook as Lee's new lover from the Young Americans, and like who else is? Hold on, let me take a look. Oh, David Keckner as the adoption attorney.
Yeah.
He just Packard shows up from The Office. It's so strange, like, but I think I think, even Debbie Reynolds as the mother, the overbearing mother of Liberace. Why do you smoke? No smoke, no smoke. And it's such a strange
Yeah,
moment.
he's good at he's always done that casting great character actors in small roles.
Yeah,
And that, I mean, I feel like sometimes it covers up a bit of the writing because if he has these like really great actors come in, for example, I'm thinking of like Viola Davis and Solaris,
oh yeah,
or I mean, there's any number of examples, or like in Contagion, it's like a movie full of character actors,
yeah, yeah.
and that sometimes covers up for the deficiencies in the writing. I feel like,
It is a good masking. Yeah, I agree with you. Like it can draw, because if you give it to anybody, it's not what it is. You know what I mean?
yeah, like everyone holds their center of gravity. If it was like some random dude in place of Dan Aykroyd, it wouldn't have the
Yeah.
same presence, you know,
Yeah.
not
Even like
substantial.
you got me thinking, like even Topher Grace in the Ocean's 11 series,
Yeah,
he just randomly appears like as himself, and it's just
yeah.
like, oh shit, there's Topher playing like a Hollywood actor. And but like
Any number of examples, like even like Luis Guzman and Out of Sight.
yes, yeah, yeah, Luis
Yeah,
Guzman, yeah.
it's like it's endless the things he could, the great character actors he would use. Um, but anyway, where are we off
Yeah.
to?
No, I mean, Soderbergh, another good job he does with this movie. I think the cinematography we were talking about earlier, how he
Yeah,
does his own DP work, and I like the way he shoots the Liberace house.
definitely.
The driveways, the cars, the pan-ins. When you're going through the home, the way that he films tension in a relationship is crazy. I think it's very, he captures something. The use of the hot tub as well, everything happens in the hot tub. His seduction of Matt Damon, the disintegration of the relationship,
Mhm.
his seduction of Boyd Holbrook's character, everything's done in the hot. It makes sense, as a character for Lee to do that too, because it's like you're so vulnerable,
That's symbolic,
right?
right? Yeah, you're not wearing any clothes. Yeah, you're like you say, you're vulnerable. It's a good place to stage those scenes. And yeah, I mean, like I said, like he's a very classical director, but he's always open to new technology. For example, as soon as the red camera came out, I think he started using it.
Yeah,
Or what was that? Girlfriend experience,
I
maybe?
think it was. Yeah, it was for the girlfriend experience.
I
I think.
think this movie is definitely digital, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But he doesn't make it look like that, boring digital look.
No.
He gives it a lot of character and personality and color.
Yeah, it's like the theatrics of it too, especially when Liberace's like on stage.
Mhm.
It almost feels like a Fosse movie, like all that jazz.
Yeah.
Especially when like Scott's watching it from a side, and he's seeing Lee become Lee, the showman, and the costumes and like the faces of the audience and the lighting in those. It's almost like you're watching like a Sinatra performance or something, like
Yeah.
something from the past, and
Yeah.
another thing that I want to bring up here is that, so Scott says that he's bisexual in the beginning,
Mhm.
almost like he doesn't know, but he knows though. He knows that he's gay, you know,
Maybe. I don't know.
right?
He is
Because
better.
Lee's like I've never heard, this gets into Lee's like character, but it's Lee's like I've never heard you talk about women. I've never seen you bring women around. So are you sure you're bisexual? And then that leads to Lee's like pornography addiction.
Yeah.
Lee putting on the porno in their bedroom on VCR, and it's just like hardcore porno playing, and Lee watching it, petting his dog, and Matt Damon's like, "Can you please turn this off?" And the first thing Lee does is like, "You're such a prude," this and that.
Scott has a lot of self-loathing about this side of
Yeah,
himself that Lee doesn't have. Lee just knows that he has to hide it from the world at large, but in his house, he can just be who he actually is. And Scott, anywhere he goes, feels like he has to constantly hide this part, and not only hide it, but feel bad about it, feel awful that this is what he is.
Yeah, it's kind of like that Catholic shame thing, and Lee even talks about it too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Lee talks about being Catholic. The only part he gets ashamed is when they go out to that gay store and they're in the booths, they're near the booths,
But again,
and
that's Scott who's getting embarrassed, right?
Scott's getting embarrassed, he ends up vomiting,
Yeah,
right? And then Lee's like looking over a booth and he's like laughing at him, you know?
yeah, yeah.
And then it's not till the next morning Scott scolds Lee. He's like,
Mhm,
"What the fuck are you thinking? Going out there, you're Liberace if somebody saw you." And
mhm.
then Lee goes, what does he say? He says, like, "No more. That's it for me. You're so right, Scott. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. I'm done with it. I'm done." It's almost like a drug. That's his drug. That's his vice.
I mean, going back to cinematography. I mean, just in terms of the staging and the blocking of the scenes, what'd you think of that?
Oh,
Because
it's
you get
great.
that most directors will be like, okay, we have the master, we get a couple of over their shoulders, a couple of close-ups.
Boo.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But for Soderbergh, and he's always done this. I was like, I was even watching part of Ocean's 11, and even in his like more mainstream, big blockbuster movies with big casts, he's shooting only what he needs to. He knows what the perspective is. He knows where to put the camera, and he knows that if he just lets the actors move around and he adjusts the camera's position in relation to that, that's all he'll need to do.
No, yeah, you got me thinking about the way he stages living room scenes
Yeah.
and how close he puts the actors together. Like in Ocean's 11, when they're at Elliot Gould's house and they're talking about the night that they're gonna rob the casino,
Mhm.
how close they are in the living room, and
Yeah.
how it's just from like one angle or two angles, and that's it.
Yeah.
And what I liked about this one is the way he shoots the living rooms is great. Like he has them all together. There's a couple shots where he has like Dan Aykroyd and Lee like on the couch, and they're talking business, and someone else is across from them. Everything's so close together. And especially those like dressing room scenes.
Especially,
How
yeah, those are the best. There's one scene that
Yeah.
lasts for like 4.5 minutes. And this is the scene before Scott's been informed that his stepmom died.
Yeah.
And in the background of that scene, it's Lee, and I think he's inviting a couple of young guys
The
to,
Young Americans.
yeah. And this whole scene takes place in one shot. It's 4.5 minutes long, but the camera is constantly adjusting to show you what you need to see. And the pacing of the scene is perfect because you don't feel like it's a 4.5 minute one shot. It feels like it has 20 different cuts. It just goes a dozen different times in this movie. And that's what makes it so exciting to watch from a technical perspective, because not many people will try to do that. It's because it's a little bit more complicated than just, shooting a few different angles.
Yeah. He's
But
almost like yeah, he's almost like De Palma.
yeah, I mean, they're just directors who just watch classical filmmakers and know that you don't need to complicate yourself by shooting a dozen different angles. You can just, if you know what the scene is about and what the characters are feeling, you can adjust your camera in relation to how they're moving and what's happening in the story, obviously.
Yeah. No, I agree. And then like he does that scene, where Matt Damon informs Lee about, his adopted mother dying. And
Yeah,
the first thing Lee does is like, "Oh, stop. I have to take a nap. Not right now." He's like,
yeah,
and then
same.
Scott tells him, and he starts to cry. And then Lee consoles him. He's like, We'll fly you out there. Take as much time as you need to."
Mm,
And then that's almost like a double-sided meaning. That means like first thing is like he's looking out for Scott. But
mhm.
then that also means like he's gonna fucking seduce this young Americans guy. This is his opportunity.
Yeah,
It's so sad.
yeah. He uses that as an opportunity, like you said, to kick Scott out of the house.
Yeah.
His other house that he bought for him, but both houses, honestly, he just
Yeah.
loses most of the things that Lee has bought for him. And
Yeah.
there's that funny scene where he's just like going all Citizen Kane in the bedroom, and everyone like cried outside in the hallway just listening to what's happening.
Yeah.
And again,
No,
a very simple scene, just a couple of angles, but
yeah.
that's all.
He's destroying the room,
Yeah,
and then it cuts to like Tom Papa, Dan Aykroyd, and Lee outside, and then like they hear a crash, and they're like, "Oh,"
kind of like wincing.
they're wincing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's like,
and
yeah, it's not even like being that that bad. He's just
it's
like
not.
a few things around.
Yeah, it's like this small comedic moment. I also like when they film. All right, this is a little moment here, but when Matt Damon flies to LA, I
Mhm.
think, after his mother dies, adopted mother dies, Soderbergh doesn't show the plane moving. He just shows these like he just shows these close-ups of the outside of a plane
Mhm.
and like the camera shaking.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like this little moment, like this little like close-ups, which brings to mind Ad Astra
yeah,
does the same thing. It has these like weird little artistic shots of like close-ups, and they're almost like memories. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what that is, but I always like when they throw in random stuff like that. Directors, it means that they're having their way.
yeah. Ultimately, yeah, it's like a tragic love story that we've always like the kind we always watch movies about since the beginning of since the dawn of stories. There's been this kind of story where it's two people who fall in love. They have this honeymoon period. They face encounter issues. And ultimately, they can't wind up together for some reason. They just can't be together. And this is
Yeah,
very much one of those movies, seen through the prism of Liberace, who was this extraordinary performer, who was multifaceted, who was sort of duplicitous, because he had to be. He had to spar himself. You could call it a tragedy if you want, I guess.
I
If you
guess.
find if you
Yeah,
pick up two people not being able who love each other not being able to be together, a
I
tragedy.
I
Which
guess like
was
La La Land. That's an example. Right?
sure, yeah, and
La
also
La
yeah,
Land.
another director who was very into not replicating but taking big influence, but from the classical directors of 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. And like the ultimate downfall of the relationship is so sad between Lee and Scott. Like I liked Scott. I like the way Soderbergh depicts drug use in his movies,
Mhm.
like in Traffic, and like like something like in this movie where Scott is like just on the downward trend with cocaine,
Yeah.
you
That
know.
yeah, that scene in his drug dealer's house is like the only use of handheld the entire
Oh yeah.
where
I
he's
love that. The close-ups.
yeah, on the phone, he's spiraling out, he's going crazy.
He said, "My fucking face! My fucking face!" And
And
then the
like the
direct
drug dealer's like goading him on. He's like, "Oh, you
yeah.
made you do that? What the fuck?" And like,
He goes like, "What the fuck, man? You had a certain lifestyle, man. Okay, so that means that he owes you money, man. You have to maintain your lifestyle.
yeah,
Egging him on, and
yeah,
that character, that I forgot that guy's name, the coke dealer, but he's from Dazed and Confused.
yeah, I think so. He's been
Yeah,
in other Soderbergh movies too.
and the downfall of Scott though, the way that it's filmed and like the way he depicts like the jewelry case being slowly emptied little by little,
Hmm.
and like his cocaine use and pill use from the California diet. It's so sad, and like um I think like once he hits that low point of when they're trying to escort him out of his own house,
Hmm.
that to me is like one of my favorite scenes, and he's like, "Get the fuck away." He's like, "Get the fuck away." He's like telling the private investigator, he's like, "I will hit you with this phone." you know?
Right. It's a very it's tragic for both of them. Yeah, it's heartbreaking for no other better word. And there was a point in time that yeah, there wasn't the amount of public knowledge we have now about
Yeah.
HH
Like Rock
grenades.
yeah, like Rock Hudson's death, the way they just
Right.
showed the newspaper
Yeah.
and how much of a big deal that was, and
Right. It's like, yeah, it's like you don't think it's real for most people in the mainstream until you see it happen to someone you can identify with. And for a lot of people, it's
yeah.
Rock Hudson. And yeah, there's that heartbreaking scene at the end where Scott visits Lee in his house and he's dying. Yeah, just tragic, heartbreaking. It just you don't like they had a very complicated and difficult relationship that was not healthy for sure. But also you get the idea that they were in love still. And seeing him die, especially after getting to know him intimately for about 2 hours, you feel terrible. You feel like this is not how you deserve to go out, right?
I agree. It's those last scenes, the way they're interwoven together,
Mhm.
and how like sad and like lonely Scott is, where he's at a bookstore and he's looking at Lee's biography and he reads it about him being in love with a female figure skater, and
Mhm.
Matt Damon's like, well, that's a lie. He just shakes his head and closes the book. And then it cuts to him at like the post office. Oh no, it's the post office and then the book store, but he's working
Yeah.
at a post office and it's so sad. Like he's just there rocking a cash register, closes it, and you could feel like his loneliness and like of what could have been,
Mhm.
you know, and he gets that phone call from Lee, breathing on the phone heavy, out of breath, saying he's got to visit him. And the way Soderbergh depicts that scene, the final scene between them on his deathbed, that was so sad.
Yeah.
Because Lee's like literally like looking like ET, man, like that scene in ET where he's like just pale as a ghost and like he's ready to die. And it's like it reminds me of ET because that's when like the kid sees his best friend ready to die and they don't even care about him, and like it's such a sad moment. I don't know, you
Yeah,
know.
you can tell in that moment how lonely Lee must
Yeah.
feel. And they're both lonely at that point in the story. And they always connected on that level of a mutual understanding that goes beyond words. It just either happens to some people or it doesn't. You just get them or you don't. Yeah, you can tell they got each other in some way.
Yeah. Isn't there like a little piano in the shot too? I think during that final.
Is there?
I'm trying to remember,
I
but
remember the funeral scene after
yeah.
Scott imagines Liberace playing.
Yeah. I love that scene.
Yeah, it's great.
I
And
love that scene.
it's pulled up
Oh man.
into heaven, I guess.
It's such a sad like that final scene where they're waiting. This is after when Mr. Heller, Lee's manager, is like trying to cover up the fact that Lee died from AIDS, which is insane,
Yeah.
that they're trying to cover it up. But
Well, you had to at that point. You
at that point, yeah.
just that you can't imagine the scorn and the way people were back then. It's completely awful stuff, especially with Reagan not even acknowledging the crisis ever.
No, it's insane.
Yeah,
It's crazy how conservative the country was at that point, like in the 80s to the early 90s. Like
yeah,
it's insane. And like um that's like a whole wave of people just died. Just a
yeah,
giant wave,
definitely.
you
And
know?
most of them, yeah, I mean, they didn't have any help. They didn't have any support. They didn't have the acknowledgement of the general public that this was something that was going on. This epidemic was killing thousands and thousands of people.
And it was like just sort of like written off as like a gay disease, It's just crazy.
Yeah,
God, man.
definitely. There's a lot of hate. Still is, definitely. But back then, you could get away with it publicly, not
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah. And then that funeral scene, yeah, where it's like the final curtain call, man, where like it just like the set disintegrates and it just becomes the theater. And like it's
Mhm.
that goes back to that first moment Matt Damon saw him, in the
Yeah,
theater. And Lee is singing that song to dream, a little dream or something, right? It's such a touching moment. And
it is. Yeah.
and the way he flies up,
Yeah.
gets onto the stage, like the
It's
little,
it up.
yeah, it
The
turns into like
monsters.
this, it turns into like this beautiful Bob Fosse moment.
Yeah.
Um,
It's I guess what really makes this movie though, more than anything else, is the two performances by Michael Douglas and Matt Damon. I don't know if you could have cast anybody else as Liberace, honestly.
um, No, you can't. No, it's very hard to picture anybody else like in that role.
Hmm.
Um, I can't think of anybody else right now. I for some reason I thought of Brad Pitt.
Yeah, definitely not.
Probably just because Soderbergh uses them a lot, but I was just thinking maybe him. Nowadays, I don't know even know like who would you put as Lee, like it's very hard to picture anybody else because it's like Michael Douglas was that good.
Yeah,
And
he just it's a perfect. He dominates perfectly, like the way Liberace moves and talked, the way he used his hand and his body.
the way that he uses like little taglines and little like sayings like who are you talking to there, mumbles, when they're in the hot tub and like Scott's on the verge of like exploding in anger. Another one is like all I do is give and give and give, what more do you want, and
Yeah,
yeah, when you think about like when an actor tries to do like a specific person and they take on the role, like I always think of like David Bowie as Andy Warhol and Basquiat. It was such a odd choice. It doesn't even it's almost like an SNL skit. It doesn't feel like it's not what it is. Another one was Thandie Newton in W as Condoleezza Rice.
I haven't seen.
That's like one of the worst performances, like playing like a real person. It was just terrible. Yeah, it's very hard to do a role like that, and I think Michael Douglas is Liberace. He just does such a good job. Another note is that his house, his real house,
Mhm.
was right there from UNLV across the street from Thomas and Mack. That house, man, yeah. Supposedly on the inside, there's like angels painted on the ceiling.
Where was it?
Dude, it's right there on Tropicana off of Baker. I think it's Baker's. It's in that neighborhood.
Mm, maybe. Yeah, that's cool.
It was on the news one time. I watched the special on it. They're like inside Liberace's house. There also used to be the Liberace Center on Tropicana.
I remember that. Yeah, seeing the museum.
The museum was there and they took it out. Can you believe that?
Too bad. Yeah, I mean, tragically, that's what happens to all of us. We eventually get forgotten. And we don't make any money anymore to pay the bills, especially like someone like Liberace, who
It's
seemed
so
like such of a person of his time.
He is a person of his time. And I think what's it, Walter Mercado from
Yeah,
Univision?
yeah.
That dude,
Yeah.
he like the torch was passed on to him, bro.
Uh-huh.
And I remember watching Walter Mercado like talking, and then my grandma was like, "He's like Liberace," and I was like, "Who's Liberace?" And then I learned about Liberace, but yeah, that whole like it was like almost like gay wizardry spirit esque, like like there's something like mysterious to like people like that. You know what I mean? They weren't real. There's just it was like a spirit you can't replicate. You
Yeah, they
know?
were both very people who created a version of themselves that was
Do you
extravagant. That was something that was larger than life.
do
And
you
art.
think
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off, but this is a good question. I know you're going to chime in on this one. You got a lot
Okay.
to say. Do you think in 2021 you can still create a character like Liberace, like Walter Mercado, and find it transcendent and successful, and not a comedic sense?
That's a good question. I don't know. Probably not.
Probably not on the internet.
I
It's
mean,
just
it's just it's very old school. This kind of extravagance, right? It's like very. It relies on outdated fashions in a way that now we're moved on to something that is very corporate and empty and vacant. And what Liberace, Walter Mercado might be doing, it didn't seem corporate, right? It didn't seem like something that was manufactured by 10 guys in the boardroom. It seemed like something that they came up with themselves as an expression of themselves.
yeah.
And now everything that takes on any sort of extravagance and flamboyance seems like it's been co-opted by corporations, and it seems empty. It seems like
Yeah,
they're just trying to sell you more T-shirts or sodas or whatever the fuck.
that's true.
It's just not there. It just doesn't like any pop star, and even me, who I love pop music. it's all manufactured. We all know that it's like a team of 50 people overseeing 50 different things in terms of marketing, music, social media, anything. It's like vetted by each and different people, make sure that thing makes the most amount of money possible. It's not an expression of a singular person. So no, the answer is no. You can't do that.
No, yeah, I agree 100%. Like
Yeah,
it's just so hard to do that now because I think because the internet just shines a light on like, like nowadays if Liberace existed, I don't need like it would be like his team. What's his brand?
yeah,
Back then it was just like I'm Liberace, man. That's what I do. I walk around my house in gold slippers and I love my dogs. I love cooking. Like the closest thing now would be like drag queens, right?
yeah. It's definitely there's some overlap there in terms of performance and extravagance.
Or like Gaga. Lady Gaga might have it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know what she's up to anymore, but she had it 7 years ago or something. I want to go back to Matt Damon, which I think he's also great in this movie. And I don't always appreciate Matt Damon, but I just think he's the best when he's playing like people who are naive or simpletons or duplicitous weasels, essentially.
Like in The Departed.
Departed, Talented Mr. Ripley,
Yes.
Informants.
Informant, yeah.
He's always
Weird comedic role. Weird, odd
yeah,
comedic role.
always at his best when he's playing. Not, I mean, he's like a good-looking traditional movie star, but I'm grateful he chooses to make these choices where he plays very much against type. And I think that's where he's best at, where he's playing these characters who are just not always the smartest guy in the room or most talented or even the best looking. He's just there trying to like get along, trying to like exist.
Yeah, I don't like, he's good in like the big movies like The Martian or something like the Born Identity series.
That's not interesting to me. I don't care about
I
it.
know that's what I was about to say. Like he's good,
Yeah,
but it like even in like Ford versus Ferrari, I enjoyed him and I think he's still good. He has to like play it down. I don't think he's like one of those like leading men. He's good as like a side character almost, you know what I mean?
sort
And,
of.
and when he could get into like the role, you could feel it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like
People
True Grit. I like him in True Grit.
definitely yes, another one that's good.
You know,
Um, People like him as like a leading man, right? The Martian, Bourne movies.
yeah.
What else has he been like a
Contagion, The
yeah,
Adjustment,
sort of he's like a character role.
Suburbicon. I didn't watch Suburbicon, but I know it bombed, unfortunately. But I still want to see it. I'll still watch Suburbicon.
Oh yeah, I mean, people, the mainstream movie audience likes him as a guy who's just handsome and capable of killing you with his bare hands. But I prefer him as the guy who just is trying to get ahead and is usually just like either like a weasel or a coward or duplicitous in some way.
But yeah, as a leading man, I'm not that into him as a leading man. As a side character, yes.
Like he can be great, better than no one can best him at like playing these kinds of roles. Like in this movie, as Scott, I also couldn't think of anyone else who would want to see play this character.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who.
Yeah, I mean it's hard because I mean, you could have like a pretty actor who's that around that age that Scott was during that time, but I don't think they could just pull off all the other moments where Scott's frustrated or upset or self-loathing. He just he like does all these different colors in this movie that really
I like the transformations too. The
yeah
transformations, the physical,
yeah
especially that look where he has the big glasses on in the pool,
uh,
and he's swimming and shit. But yeah, all right, man. So
anything else?
I don't. I
Good
think we're
editing.
good. I think we're good on the Behind the Candelabra. If you haven't seen it, check it out, man. It's a hell of a movie. I guess you'd have to see it on HBO Max, right?
I mean, yeah, if you have HBO, you can buy the DVD.
Yeah, I have the DVD.
How do you think of this movie in terms of Steven Soderbergh's overall career?
Where does it fit?
Yeah, like what do you think what is this evolution? for him in this movie.
This is a part of like the digital series almost.
Yeah, well, he's all digital now, I think,
He's
but
all digital now, but it's sort of like like not like kickstarted, but he was
uh,
almost like in that weird thing of like, it's like the girlfriend experience.
yeah,
It's along that. It's almost like it's a little movie with a lot to say. Um and I think it's just classic Soderbergh. If you want to like see like how he does stage work and you don't want to get wrapped up too much in the story,
yeah,
if you want to learn how to like put actors in specific places.
yeah. Anyway, I was gonna say that Ocean's 12. After that, that movie didn't do as well as the first movie.
I love Ocean's 12. Let's see.
It's
Bubble. Yeah, he started doing all these little movies,
yeah,
dude, like weird. This is where, in my opinion, like Soderbergh starts to really like get into he's like, I'm gonna do my own thing.
yeah,
Yeah, Ocean's 12, Bubble, The Good German, Ocean's
right.
13.
That's the one, The Good German.
I love that movie.
He put all this work into it. It
Yes.
bombed.
It bombed. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
totally
such a
bombed.
dude. Nobody talks about The Good German.
No,
Nobody talks about Good Night and Good Luck. Those two are like,
well, that's George Clooney, right?
yeah, that's Clooney, dude. And like those two movies are like they got the same thing going on, like black and white, period piece. You know what I mean?
I mean, like
Political stuff.
I think for him, I mean, The Good German in terms of how it looks beautiful. It's all yeah, it's like a Michael Curtiz movie, et cetera, et cetera. But these movies, he's always so good as a director. But if his movies aren't good, it's just because of the script.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw Unsane, that movie he made on the iPhone with Claire
Didn't watch.
Foy.
No, I haven't watched any of his movies since Logan Lucky.
Even Logan Lucky, like
I
those
like Logan
movies.
Lucky.
I mean, they're okay, but they never become great because of the script. It always feels like something's missing. It feels doesn't like hit you emotionally the way his other movies do.
Yeah.
And it seems like sometimes that he's like working so fast, he just goes to what's available. But I think if he just took his time a bit more, he could make sure these movies are all great.
Yeah. No, I can see what you're saying. Let's see. So Ocean's 13, Che, part 1 and 2.
Yeah, those are great, sure.
Girlfriend Experience, The Informant, Contagion.
Performance okay, yeah. Contagion's good.
Contagion, Haywire.
Yeah, I like it.
Magic Mike. Side Effects, Logan Lucky, Unsane, High Flying Bird, Laundromat.
Did you see the Nick TV show he directed?
No, I didn't. No,
Yes,
I know it's good though. I hear it's really good.
Yeah, he directed all 20 episodes.
But yeah, man, Soderbergh, he's got some. I still like The Good German, man, and like Solaris and like Full Frontal. Those little movies. We'll do Che part 1 and 2. I think that's.
Sure.
Any final thoughts on
Che,
Lee Scott?
I don't know, guys. Watch this movie. It's a movie. I mean, I know people don't care about staging and blocking. I don't know. I mean, like we're gonna talk about this next week, but well, yeah, I wish there was more directors like Steven Soderbergh because
Me too.
it's a bummer.
It is a bummer. We'll get Boris is alluding to Martin Scorsese's critique of the current film industry landscape, which we will do a separate episode on, because I think that's going to require, we can't just tag it onto a movie review. I think we should actually have its own dissection.
Right. But I mean, Steven Soderbergh, very classical director, or at least in terms of, I mean, you don't have to call him classical. He just learned all the best lessons from what people were doing back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, up to the 70s. And he puts those lessons to good use in the way that many directors who make studio movies don't. You can tell that they have no sense of geography, of the actor's location, and the scene, and the way it's staged. It's just it's a mishmash. It's just putting two shots together in a way that feels like it's not a connection. It feels very, I don't know what the word is. It just feels empty.
It feels alive. It feels alive, and it feels like he put time into staging.
Right. Yeah. That's like I heard in interviews that's what he puts most of the time into. How is this going to play out on screen? And a lot of other directors, they just they don't care, or they don't notice, or no one tells them.
I think they got other things on their mind, like they're just focused more on like maybe the performance, maybe like how it's in the cut together,
I don't know.
probably how it's in the cut together.
Like I feel like it's depressing that directors don't put a little bit more effort into this, right? It's a visual medium. What are we doing if it's not going to be visual?
It's a visual medium and also it's digital. Like just film it. You know what I mean? You're not killing film.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in his own way, he's kind of daring in the way he, like Haywire, for example. He shoots all these action scenes, all these fight scenes in one or two different angles, right? Or if it was like the Born Supremacy, you'd have to like the constantly shaking handheld, cutting back and forth every 2 seconds.
I honestly I dislike that kind of,
Yeah, me too. I hate it.
and it's too fast. And I don't even know what the hell is going on in those movies half the time.
Yeah, it's boring. It gets boring.
All right, Bobo, we're
All
gonna finish this one up. All right, guys. See
Okay.
it. Watch the Candelabra. I agree with
final
Boris.
thoughts.
My final thoughts?
Yeah, what are your final
You
thoughts?
already know me, man. I love Soderbergh. He
Yeah.
can't do no wrong. Even Logan Lucky. I know you disagree. I love it. No, yeah, like what you said. It's we'll get more into this next week with the Scorsese critique of his essay, but I agree. I think the Soderbergh was like the first dude that made me rethink like the possibility of like movies,
Mhm.
where it was just like, oh, you don't have to like tell a story like in a linear way. You don't have to set up the camera in a specific way. You
Mhm.
can just shoot something and have a good time and still get your point across. You know what I mean?
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know. That's the way, not a good time, but get your vision out there and not care what anybody else thinks.
I think he cares a lot actually about what people think.
Probably.
I think I've read interviews with him where like every time a movie of his bombs, he's like constantly like scratching his head trying to figure out why it
Figure out
bombed.
why.
Because
Like,
if it
like
went up to him, all these movies would be hits, and he tries to make movies that are accessible and still not experimental for sure, but still they're willing to include all these French New Wave, whatever.
New Wave, yeah. The way
Yeah.
he like looks up to New Wave, I admire a ton. The way he like looks up to Godard and like Truffaut, specifically Godard though. I like the way like Schizopolis is probably my favorite movie by him because it's a 1960s infomercial on acid, and it's amazing. It's like Putney Swope almost.
Sort of, yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's very transgressive in that way, but at the same time, he wants people to watch his movies. And I think that's
But
constantly a battle.
Boris, do people understand his movies? That's the thing, like
I don't think that matters to him. He makes them easily comprehensible. He's not
right?
even that ambiguous in terms of his storytelling.
I agree. Yeah. All right. So, guys, not welcome, but thank you for
He's-
tuning in to another edition of Movies Are Dead, audio only, unfortunately.
Bye.